Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Friday, and that would ordinarily mean some sort of Friday reads, but this week I really feel like I've been abusing the privilege. 5 videos a day, every day, without giving any of you a chance to take a breath or get up off the mat. This feels really sort of self-indulgent. I've made more videos this week than most booktubers make in a year. So I feel a little self-conscious about that. Not much, but a little self-conscious. So I thought instead of doing any kind of a Friday reads, I would do a sort of a Friday, an Irish stew of a video, just a sort of a roundup of a whole bunch of things that I've jotted on the iPad here, that'll have books in it, but a lot of other things too. A lot of other things that otherwise I would have made a video about, and we don't need any more of those. I'm even thinking about taking the weekend off, just to give you a chance to catch up with 5 videos a day. But I thought we'd go through a few general headings here, so I can just chat about things. I'll show you some things, and it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun. I don't know that I've ever done a video like this. We can start with the weather, since it's a popular refrain on this channel. I hesitate to mention how autumn-like it's been here, but it has been. Last couple of days have been cool, gamesome breezes. Never a chance for it to get clammy or hot. And I hesitate to say that because there's a heat dome currently over 90% of America and also over 90% of Europe. That's making it broiling hot. It's like a different world. Everybody that I correspond with, everybody that I Voxer with, they're living in a different world. All of them are. Whether it's, Europe or China, or Indonesia or America, most people are dealing with triple-digit temperatures that just don't ever seem to want to end. But in Boston, we have had it easy. Nature has taken it easy on us this summer. We've had our share of heat domes in the past, but this summer, no, not so much, and lately, not at all. And there was a forecast. There was a big blob. If we do blob watch, there was a big blob on the radar that looked like it was dead set to hit Boston, and it did. So it's raining all day today, and cool. You could actually close all the windows, turn off all the fans here, and you would be perfectly comfortable. So I'm not worried about that. The thing that's on my mind when it comes to weather is a tropical storm. There's a tropical storm called Franklin. It's now down in many, many miles from here. And it looks like the jet stream is going to just gently urge it out to sea to become what meteorology bros refer to as a fish storm. But a couple of the models that I've looked at aren't quite so sure about that. And I wonder if Franklin, as it goes further and further north, won't become one of the first notable examples in this calamitous summer of something that is certainly going to become more common, which is a full-scale hurricane that hits the eastern seaboard. That used to be rare. Has to now been rare. But hurricanes feed on hot water. They feed on warm ocean waters. That's one of the reasons why it's rare. But the water in the entire Atlantic Ocean is 90 degrees, which is unheard of, which has not happened since Jurassic times. And so a tropical storm that hits those waters might become too strong. And also the jet stream might not cooperate. So the one thing I know for sure is that if Tropical Storm Franklin actually does strike the Atlantic waters off, say, Delaware, it will have more than enough energy to strengthen to a Category 2 or a Category 1 or a Category 2 hurricane, and then God knows where it goes. It could hit Nova Scotia, but it could also hit New York. That's one variable, and the other variable is whatever the jet stream is going to do. So I don't know. I will be keeping an eye on Tropical Storm Franklin. I don't want to think about what will happen when hurricanes start to realize they're not sentient, but they're close enough. When hurricanes start to realize that the northern parts of the Atlantic are now wide open to them, that they're not going to starve to death if they go up there. They're going to find hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles of hot water. The Atlantic Ocean is now warm. It's bathtub warm. Storms love that. That's what they feed on. So, well, that's the weather. And then we'll move to letters in the mail, to emails. I got a Dear King Tentacle letter that I thought I would share with all of you. Dear King Tentacle, background sirens are a ubiquitous feature on your YouTube channel. But I've noticed that very often when you're at your most passionate, there are no sirens during those stretches. Are the sirens imaginary too, just like your imaginary BookTube friends? I had to share that. I love it. Of course, you know what the emailer is talking about. We often will certainly hear it in this video. We often hear sirens in these videos. The reason for that is because Hyde Cottage is, I believe, speak of the devil. Hyde Cottage is located on a 4-lane road that is also a major thoroughfare and an evacuation route out of town. The road parallels train tracks for a huge amount of its length, like 3 or 4 miles, which means that once you pass a certain intersection, which is a second away from where I live, you, the motorist, know that you no longer have to worry about interfering traffic coming from the right-hand side. There's a train track on that side. For a long stretch of time, you're not going to have to worry about that. So right here, right at this spot on the road, you can floor it. You can gun your engine. You can do all sorts of, all of that is illegal. You can do all sorts of stuff like that and get away with it because you'll be 3 miles away. Of course, you won't get away with murder if a child runs between 2 cars 2 miles from here. Because at the speed you're going, you would need 10 miles to slow down. You're going to get 10 seconds. So the only hope you would have to avoid lifetime in prison for killing that child was if the impact killed you too. But that open stretch nature of this, that also means that people who have emergency vehicles, police, fire engines, sirens, or ambulances, also know that. And since from traffic coming on the left-hand side, there's a string of traffic lights. At every one of those traffic lights, those emergency vehicles have to blast their sirens to get people to pull out of the way, which people in this area don't do. They simply don't do it. It's first instinct everywhere, literally in the world. But this stretch, no, I'm on my phone. I know you're right behind me and you're blaring your sirens, and if the police show up, they're going to kill me and drag my car out of the way. I know all that, but I'm scrolling on my phone. And that's what you hear. Annoyance and the open road. You do not hear emergencies. The sirens are real, but they aren't emergencies. And the answer to the plaintiff question here is that sometimes someone who's coming all the way up the road from 2 miles away, blaring their sirens at every stoplight to get people to pull out of the way, because they're not going to stop at the stoplights. They're only going to stop because they don't want to run into other cars. Sometimes when they get to here, once they've got past that last intersection, they realize that they have no more obstacles to get to their destination, so they'll cut off the siren. That doesn't mean they're imaginary. It just means that occasionally you'll get somebody who will obey the rules. Then we'll move on to our next category can be news. And of course, from this week, from yesterday, for all time, really for the next 1,000 years, there is only one article of news. There's lots of other stuff that happened. India landed on the moon. There's lots of other stuff that happened, but there's really only one thing that happened, which is that Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, was arrested and booked and mugshotted in the Fulton County Jail in Georgia. And that mugshot became the single most iconic image in American history. Probably in American history. I can think of a couple more, maybe those shootings at Kent State or a couple of other things, but they will almost all be overshadowed by the glowering face of a former president taking a mugshot for crimes against the country, and specifically for crimes against Georgia. And I watched, I waited for that mugshot. I felt bad about myself for waiting for it. I waited for it anyway, like everybody else did. It's living history. That has never happened before. Likely it will never happen again. It is certainly an indication of the singular criminality with which Donald Trump has conducted his life for the last 45 years. That's right from the beginning. When he first comes to public knowledge, in anybody's way, in any kind of televised way, it's for a hearing in which he is breaking the law. And it just kept going, but it became sort of pasteurized and quasi-benevolent because he became this sort of cartoonish figure on TV and in the pro wrestling world. It was the worst nightmare in the world none of us ever imagined. It was the worst nightmare imaginable in the late 1990s that would be imported into U.S. politics, into the Oval Office. But the thing that struck me most about the thumbnail, there are all sorts of analyses of this is going to be the most analyzed image in American history. And the thing that struck me the most about it is that it's clearly the photograph of a psychopath. And Donald Trump has been all sorts of things, a sociopath for most of his life, but not a psychopath. That picture said, I will have my vengeance on all of you. That's what that picture was meant to say. Somebody told me this guy's been practicing all day. He's been practicing his mugshot all day. This was not accidental on his part. He got exactly the mugshot that he wanted. And therefore, the message is intentional. And it was meant to say, I will have my vengeance on all of you. Not necessarily from the Oval Office. This was the look of a psychopath, someone who wants to kill people. I believe that's all that's left for this guy. I think he knows that he can't legitimately get elected president anymore. I think he knows that the Georgia penal system is not playing around, and that probably the federal penal system is not playing around either. I think he knows that he doesn't have any way out because he's been confessing to his crimes for the last year. I think all that is left for him to dream about and want is murder. Just simple murder. I want someone, if I'm going down, I want someone to die. I saw that picture, and my very first reaction was, Fulton County DA is almost certainly going to die. All it takes is one crazy Trump cult member to do it. And that picture is calling them to do it. I was messaging back and forth with someone else who also told me that the very founding tenets of what America is will be proven either strong enough or not strong enough in the next 12 months. And I agree with that. But I think the thing that will demonstrate it is that I think all this guy wants now is blood. I don't think that even he thinks that he's going to be back in the Oval Office legitimately. Which means the only way he would get back in the Oval Office would be through bloodshed. But I don't think he even cares about the Oval Office part anymore. I think he just cares about the bloodshed. Horrifying. A horrifying image. Anybody who has listened to me for years railing about this lunatic in the Oval Office, anybody who's listened to me railing against him probably thinks I was dancing a jig when that mugshot came out. Well, there are a whole bunch of people, I watched them on Twitter and on YouTube, who were, but I am not at all. Not at all. I thought it was horrifying. So that's the news. We'll have better news next week, I hope, unless I'm right. But so next we'll move on to the stuff I've been watching. We'll slowly build our way up to books. We'll talk a little bit about stuff that I've been watching. I listed 4 things here that I've been watching, and only one of them I thought was noteworthily good in a cheesy kind of Garbogist way. The one is Godzilla -1. It's a new Godzilla movie that I thought was terrific. Now, keep in mind, in all these things, I don't know when they actually come out or where they actually come out, because I have a friend in Hollywood who sends me screeners, so they don't come with any dates on them. Maybe in the packaging they do, but I don't keep the packaging, and I don't keep them organized like I do my screener books. So keep in mind I don't know when any of these things come out. But Godzilla -1 I thought was very good, powerful, fun popcorn movie. And one of the things I like most about it is that, no offense to the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie, for obvious reasons, but one of the things that I love about it is that almost no liberties are taken with what Godzilla actually looks like. Instead, the special effects people in this movie, the director of this movie, realized that the dorky old guy in a rubber costume, Godzilla, could be really frightening while looking very similar to what he does. I thought it was terrific, just terrific. Easily my favorite Godzilla movie. I've watched all the major remakes that have been done since the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie, which I actually like. I'm one of the only people who does. but I've watched everything since then, and this was my favorite by far, just by far. So that was one thing that I watched. You can maybe put a pin in. Then there was a movie called The Creator that was about a future world, the rise of AI. It's meant to play on the fear of AI. There are all these robots that move like people, they act like people, and they detonate a nuclear bomb in LA. The bomb detonation sequence is really good. I'm a little connoisseur of bomb detonation sequences in movies, and this one stands the test of time. I believe it will go in the Hall of A-bomb fame. And it's mostly predictable. It's very pretty. It's very pretty. It's a science fiction extravaganza. And I appreciated one aspect of it, which is that it's not a superhero movie. I honestly do believe there is some truth to the neck-bearded quasi-fascist claim that maybe Hollywood has worn out its welcome with superhero movies. I think there might be some truth to that. This is a science fiction extravaganza that is not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is not part of the Dude Bro DC universe. It's not part of any of that. It's just a science fiction movie. Of course, on the negative side of that is that it's intensely predictable. Oh my God. Most science fiction is. So I'm not necessarily holding that against it, nor do I really care, as you all know, when it comes to movies, TV, even books. I am about the execution. I am not about whether or not you're throwing me an Inception-style haymaker at the end that I didn't see coming. But the main thing that I liked about the movie is the star, John David Washington, a young actor named John David Washington, just commanded the thing. Just commands the movie. I 15 minutes after I watched the screener, I couldn't tell you the finer details of the stupid boilerplate plot. But all I could think was, put this guy in some other movie. I'll watch him in anything he does. If he can do this good with this kind of cheesy fare, who knows what he could do in something better. Like the better movie that the creator could have been. Then the other movie, another movie, we'll do two more. The other movie that I watched, I didn't go in with high hopes because this director and I do not get along. The director is Martin Scorsese, and the movie is The Killers of the Flower Moon, which is his adaptation of the New York Times best-selling book. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio. It stars Robert De Niro. It stars a whole bunch of people. There's also a very good character actor who's barely recognizable in this movie. And the reason that Scorsese and I don't get along is the reason that I don't tend to have prolonged conversations with film broods, with cinema bros, because they consider absolute fire-breathing heresy a simple observation that I tend to make when it comes to movies, which is that directors don't matter. And of course, if you have that as your simple observation about movies, you're not going to get along with Martin Scorsese, because he thinks that directors do matter, more than anything, including more than deities. And boy, oh boy, does it show in this movie. I mean, honestly, this movie, in terms of its cinema, in terms of its camera shots, its camera angles, the gimmicks that it plays with its viewers, in terms of all of those things, it is no different than Creator. They are both cheesy, ham-handed manipulation of the audience. They both are. In both cases, the cinematography, what you would count as the directing, is absolutely not trusting the audience member to have more than two brain cells to rub together. In both movies, that's true. At least in a science fiction popcorn movie, you don't care. You don't feel insulted, right? Because that's a kind of movie, that's a kind of thing that's been done. When in the heat of an incredible summer, when you go to the movie theater, as much for the air conditioning as anything else, and you get your giant tub of popcorn, and you sit down, it could be any movie, you almost want to turn off your brain, don't you? A lot of the time. Well, the creator knows that, and is willing to play along with that. It's not a dumb movie, not completely, but Scorsese doesn't believe he's making movies like that, obviously. So what you get instead is a highfalutin version of expecting that your audience is dumb. And that I couldn't help but notice it. Now, maybe the problem here in the course of this movie is that in addition to that attitude, which the movie's actual technical execution absolutely does not bear out, there's also Leonardo DiCaprio, who I think his whole career is basically a living iteration of thinking that your audience is too dumb to notice that something bad is right in front of them. I think that's his whole career. So the Killers of the Flower Moon and I did not get along. But the last one I wanted to do is a little movie. I don't know how widespread any of these things will have in terms of distribution. I actually don't know whether or not all of them will show up in movie theaters. I'm sure that the Scorsese film will. But post-pandemic, I don't know how many of these things won't just go to streaming or some sort of paid platform like that, where they might make more money, for all we know. Studios tend to darken the numbers here, so we might not. It might be true that they're more profitable. But the last one is a movie called Reptile, which is I don't know if it's a movie or if it was. It could easily have been the first mushed together stretches of episodes of a series. A little bit tough to tell with a screener that isn't really for finished production. It's not going to be in a DVD case or anything. But it stars Benicio del Toro, who I always like, and also Justin Timberlake as the befuddled husband who is, both outraged and bereaved and also suspect number one. It's a police procedural. And some of it is, again, very predictable. Police procedurals tend to be. The thing that I noticed about it, I watched, I think, an hour of it, maybe more than that, maybe an hour and a half of it. And the thing that I noticed is something that I have noticed for years. I am not jumping on the bandwagon here. I'm sure that somewhere out there is my written appraisal of a movie that came out a long time ago that also had Justin Timberlake in it. This movie just reminded me that this guy is a really good actor. He's good on screen. He is a good actor. This is not the vanity project of a pop star who thinks he can act. He has a good, tense presence on screen. You absolutely can't take your eyes off him. Whereas I think one of the particular magics of Benicio del Toro is how skillfully he sheds eyes from him. Even though he's giving an incredibly charismatic, intelligent performance, there's something about the way he's doing it. It's very Alec Guinness-like, where you almost don't notice that he's there. And that is clearly craft on his part. I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but it's whatever Justin Timberlake is doing is the exact opposite. You can't look away from it. I don't think he's doing anything. I think it's just his presence on the camera. It's unmistakable in Reptile, as it's been unmistakable in almost every movie I've ever seen him in. So, again, like with, what was his name again? John David Washington. Like with John David Washington, I was thinking, wait, can I see more of this? I mean, could we maybe do something with this guy instead of just every once in a while when he feels like it, in between dumb, forgettable albums? Maybe he could carve out a movie career. That would be great. Not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but somewhere else. That would be great. But anyway, those are the 4 other things that I was watching. I don't do much watching. I mostly spend time reading. So since I mostly spend time reading, we will now use the wonders of the iPad to go to what? We'll talk about some books here. Stuff that I have read, stuff that I'm reading now, currently working my way through, struggling with, stuff that I'm about to read or want to read. We'll do a bunch of those because technology allows us to do that. Let's start at the beginning. Okay, we'll start at the beginning with a familiar name who's returning to fiction for the first time in a long, long time, many, many, many years. This is Tim O'Brien, the author of The Things They Carried. And his new book is America Fantastica. Can we make out that cover here? Let's try it on this side. America Fantastica. Want to come up here, Bean? Want to see your friends? Come up here and see your friends. Come on, you can do it. Come on, baby. Take it running, head started. Up you go. Come on. You can do it. Come on. I really should get her a ramp. She's not a baby anymore. Come on, you can do it. There you go. Good girl. It's a novel from Tim O'Brien. It's his first one in years. We'll see what those who are more learned in the law than I am have to say about it. I read it and thought the same thing that I thought about the gigantic John Irving novel earlier this year, which is that I kept reminding myself that you can get a book contract for a phenom of a book. Doesn't mean you have a lifetime of stories in you. It really doesn't. I know that it's unbearably tempting. You can't resist the temptation for a publisher saying, well, you can have this much money if we get 3 more books out of you. You're going to write those books. But I don't know that Tim O'Brien had more than a couple of books in him. This is nothing. It's foam. It's forgettable. I thought. Maybe a reread of mine will be different, but also maybe people who read fiction will have more things to say on it. But all I could think was that. I kept reminding myself that all throughout the book, thinking, maybe you only had so many stories to tell. Maybe that's true. There's no shame in that. Go and teach. But the next one, is the exact opposite. We're going across the spectrum here. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't think that I would. I thought it would be sort of pro forma. This is by Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is his book, Be Useful. Notice the subtitle, 7 Tools for Life instead of 12 Rules for Life. This is not about cleaning your room. This is not about petting cats on the sidewalk. This is not about an endless, relentless concentration on your own self. It's about going out and being useful. Make yourself useful. Go out and do things. Here's how you can make the most of your life. I don't know if Schwarzenegger wrote this or helped to write it as a response to Jordan Peterson explicitly. I think probably, maybe on some level, certainly some parts of the book lend themselves to that. I think he did it more because maybe I don't know how much time this guy spends online. Maybe he's tuned in enough to know about the phenomenon that we've talked about on this channel many times, which is the so-called lost demographic of young men between the ages of 18 and 25, who really, their parents, their fathers, largely grew up in an environment in which they wanted to be their kid's friend, not their kid's father. And they also have come into a 21st century that hates them, just as a class. Not you individually, just if this is what you are, then you are evil. Young boys in grade schools in America are routinely told that by their teachers. They owe everybody in the classroom an apology. And the young boys don't have any idea about the world. They're completely innocent. So if the teacher tells them that they're bad, they'll believe it. The incel contingent here, even though a lot of the young men in that demographic are not involuntary celibates. The name, for me, has come to sort of as a moniker, as a general usage for that group. And maybe Schwarzenegger knows about that. Maybe he knows about that demographic. Certainly this book seems to be aimed squarely at them. I think if you are in that demographic and you're now justifiably cautious about all the junk and the grifting that's being done out there, well, Schwarzenegger is a multimillionaire. He doesn't need to grift. And I think you might find this book interesting. I thought it was. I don't know if that was just the tyranny of low expectations. Then this next one is just a stand-in. This doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be just this one volume. Every late summer and autumn, the Best American series comes out. Started out with Best American Short Stories, but then Best American Essays, and now it's Best American Everything. It's a huge number of things. They always look like this. You've got a series editor and then a showboating guest editor that comes in for each volume. This is short stories because that's sort of canonical, but they come out with travel writing, food writing, journalistic writing, you name it, science fiction, fantasy, mysteries. There are all kinds of volumes. I tend to get them all. I tend to go through them all very scrupulously. I've only got a couple so far. I don't actually have the Best American Short Stories. I've got a couple so far. The couple that I've seen so far confirm my expectations for this series this year. I was dreading this series this year. Usually I'm looking forward to it. But this year I'm dreading it because I think I know that it's going to be just vengeful politicking, just identity politics. And so far, the two that I've read have been. An utter betrayal of the mission of this series, which is literally to pick the best things that the editors can find. No. If you're serving the progressive stack, if you're serving identity politics, then that very idea goes out the window. Unless you are a racist and a sexist. Unless you are saying, well, no, the progressive stack guarantees that we will get the best stuff because this certain demographic group of people, anyone with dangling bits and anyone with white skin, can't do good work. So we might let a token in now and again, but we're not going to be paying much attention to them because as a class, they are born insufficient. If you are that kind of a bigot and a racist, well, then you'll think that you are fulfilling your mission for Best American, but normal people will not think that at all. And so far, I've only read a tiny fraction of this lineup so far this year. Hoping for the best. Hoping for the best from the two biggies, short stories and essays. Well, I'm hoping for the best from both of those. We'll see. Then this next one is one that I am hoping to get. I'm hoping to get a nice, big, generous Finnish copy. This is by Judith Tick, and this is her book, Becoming Ella Fitzgerald. And it's a fairly hefty size, if I remember correctly, a fairly hefty size biography about all the things that Ella Fitzgerald had to do in order to become Ella Fitzgerald. It's a great story to be told. I only know it in fragments, usually from little bits and pieces that I've read over the decades in Rolling Stone. To have a big book on it by a serious scholar, wonderful. I'm hoping for, I don't know when I don't know the release dates for any of these things, but I'm hoping that I get a finished copy of this. I would like to read it. I know already that I love the subject. We'll just have to see if I love the execution. Then we have Taylor Lawrence. Some of you might know this author. This is extremely online. This is her study of not just the internet, but life on the internet, what it means to live on the internet. I think. I haven't read this yet. I haven't got it yet. But I love the subject, obviously, for obvious reasons. I love the subject. I think this might also deal with influencer culture. I've read a couple of books this year on influencer culture that were a little bit on the underfed side. This author I associate only with good work, so extremely online might be just the thing I'm looking for to round out the year. The title refers to the term for people who spend way too much time on social media, way too much time. A little bit here and there. Stay in touch with your friends, keep in touch with the latest news, the latest memes maybe, but not 10 hours a day. Not 10 hours a day. Those people exist in their millions, and they are extremely online. I'm looking forward to this. Hope that I enjoy it. I'll report back. Same thing with this. This is an author that I absolutely love. The author is Lawrence Leamer, and this is his new book. It's Hollywood history. He does it better than almost anybody. This is Hitchcock's Blondes, a forthcoming book in which he gives, it's basically, if I remember correctly, it's basically an arrangement of chapters that are mini biographies of all the famous actresses who were the blondes in Hitchcock's movies. And that is a great roster of characters, some of whose stories have been told many, many times. Grace Kelly's story, of course, has been told many, many times. Some of whose stories have not been told at all. And it doesn't matter in any case because I want to read them told by this author. This author's terrific. So I don't care if he's going over familiar ground. And I guarantee that in the course of this book, in addition to the biographies of these women, we will also get sprinkled along the way brilliant observations about Hitchcock, about his oeuvre. Brilliant. I can't wait. I have to wait because I don't have it yet, but I can't wait. And this is another one. This one is a revised and expanded edition of something that I have read. And I've read many times. I'll gladly gobble this up, but I'm not eager to get it in the way that I am Hitchcock's Women or Extremely Online because I already know what this is. This is a new edition of the Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. I want to know what's been added here, and I'll be interested. It probably has a new introduction, probably maybe some new critical apparatus. I'm kind of curious to know whether or not this thing is going to intentionally stake out ground independent of Christopher Tolkien. That'll be a kind of a melancholy thing to watch the Tolkien literary remains be wrested into the realm of, hey, everybody can do this, and away from Christopher Tolkien alone can do this. Not that he did a great job, but that translation of this material from family hands to non-family hands is going to happen. I wonder what kind of notes like that will be struck in this book, but that's very niche. This is very niche. Letter collections from authors are very niche. They tend to wrap out a year, I think, because publishers tend to think that they make great presents for dad or granddad. Get him a big 800-page book of some author's letters, and he'll be as happy as a clam. Last year we had the great volume, Private Spy, the letters of John le Carré. And here, I think this is coming out at right about the same time, maybe even from the same publisher. I've read a lot of the previous edition of the Letters of Tolkien, so there won't be many surprises in here, I don't think. Then we have something by Robert Morgan. This is a new biography called Fallen Angel, a new biography of Edgar Allan Poe. Weird cover there. Don't have Raven on there. Don't have Poe's face on there. It's kind of an eye-catching cover. I really can't argue with it. I've read all the major Edgar Allan Poe biographies that have ever come out. I think he almost qualifies, except for his literary criticism, he almost qualifies as another one of those authors, like Dickens, who I'd rather read about than read. And I have to admit that a couple of the Edgar Allan Poe biographies that have come out in the last 50 years have been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Ken Silverman's book on Poe is a great biography, one of the great biographies. So naturally, when I know all that, I look at this sort of thing and think, can you measure up? I don't know. Most readers will go into this book without those books hanging over, without those books pressing in their memory. I realize that I'm not most readers, and I recognize that this book probably wasn't written for most readers. So I will go into it with full charity, and we will see. We're moving right along here. I'm gonna try and get this done before an hour. This is a new kind of video. I don't know how long it's going to be. Then next we have. Well, actually, we can finish up with a couple of books here. Yeah, well, no, we're nowhere near finishing. All right. The next thing I want to mention is something that I just recently read, the galley copy. I can't wait to read it again. I'll get the finished copy and reread it. This is by Christian Wyman, and it is called Zero at the Bone. Oh my God, you'll never see that title. 50 Entries Against Despair is the subtitle. A rare, ugly American cover for a book. We've had a wonderful year for these. This is really a bagatelle of all kinds of things. This author is a poet. Christian poet, he's a God botherer, but he's one of the best that exists. He's so smart, and this is terrific. Will it come out any better? It's over here. I feel like such an amateur when it comes to this sort of thing. No, this is a white cover, so just take my word for it. We'll move on to covers so you can see. There's nothing to look at anyway. It's a bagatelle, though. It's not just his poetry. It's also all kinds of literary references, of course, scriptural exegesis, and autobiographical stuff. I was captivated the whole time. Just love it. So we'll move on to a cover that you can see. This is this book and a couple of others on here, I think, are the exponents of a recent habit of mine, a new habit of mine. I've recently fallen in love with those free or bargain ebook aggregator sites that send you out an email every day. Here are today's bargains. Here are today's cheap books. Here are today's free books. I signed up for one of those, and I don't think I ever paid much attention to it because it kept getting shunted straight to my spam, so I never really looked at it. Then I did look at it, and then I looked at a whole bunch of others, and a lot of you suggested some. Feel free to make other suggestions. And, oh my God, it's amazing. I get a free book every day, at least one, every day. I don't buy anything. I only go to the ones that are free. Buy here on Amazon, click for free, just as simple as that. But I've been amazed at the sort of stuff that I found. Oh, of course, a lot of it is self-published stuff, but that doesn't bother me. I'm a champion of indie presses. I want to know what self-published authors are doing. I acknowledge more readily than most of my critical brethren that a lot of great work is being done there. This, I don't know if this was indie published. I think I might just have missed this. This is the Coburgs of Belgium. Again, we've got a white cover here and very bad lighting. This is A Defiant Dynasty is the subtitle. Now, you're not going to be able to see this at all, are you? Just nowhere. There's no angle that will work. Wow, that's a shame. I wonder if that would work any better on my phone. would it is maybe the amount of light uh, that's being done here maybe won't. I feel guilty because I'm not able to show you these books, and I kind of want to. Uh, I wonder if the light on the phone would be any better. Anyway, the Coburgs of Belgium were a long royal family. There was a famous quip that Bismarck made. Otto von Bismarck said they were the stud farm of Europe. Uh, I don't know how much truth there was in that, but the Coburgs were prolific. Okay, let's see if we can do this. Let's see if this will crop up. And see if it'll look any better. That's the key. There's no bother futzing around with the phone if it's not going to look any better. Let's see if this looks any better. Okay, that actually does look a little better. Let's go to a problem case and see if what was one that gave us a problem case? It was zero at the bone. No, zero at the bone whites out completely even on the phone. Just a little bit better there. Well, it's a little bit better, and I'll take that. So let's try the Coburgs of Belgium in this. Sorry about the futzing. Like I said, I didn't practice ahead of time and never done this kind of video before. See if this is any more visible. Okay, that's a little bit better. And you don't care, right? You just want to know what it is. All right, fine. We'll do it this way then. This is a biography of that family. And it's wonderful. And I wasn't surprised that it was wonderful because it's by Theo Aronson, and I have exposure to Theo Aronson. He wrote a book called Prince Eddie and the Homosexual Underworld, which I've shown you on this channel a couple of times, and I loved it. Absolutely loved that book. It never occurred to me really to look around for any more books by this author, and this one was offered to me for free as an ebook. So I absolutely took it, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It is incredibly good. Of course, the Coburg family is going to be known to you mostly because Queen Victoria was of the Saxe-Coburg family. But if you've never heard of this royal dynasty and you think, well, because I've never heard of them, it's not going to be any good. Oh, you're wrong. Theo Aronson can make anything good, I guess. This book was terrific. Well worth the cover price, that's for sure. Then we have something by Jesse Cleaver. This was also a free book from one of those aggregator sites. And this is A Duke Won't Do. It's a Regency novel with a rather saucy cover there. I don't know what the Duke is doing wearing suspenders. But the one thing that you don't really get, you won't really get it, I don't think, in any detail from this cover. No, you won't get it in any detail from this cover. The cover design for this book, the designer for this book, did not have the courage of the book itself. Because in the book itself, the main heroine has been scarred by smallpox. She's long been off the marriage market for that reason. Her parents are doting, they love her, but they're also very protective. She's mainly lived at home rather than subject herself to the stares of the world. If you don't know what I'm talking about, because smallpox has largely been eliminated from the world, it's going to make a comeback in 2021, in the 21st century, but it hasn't done that yet. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, brace yourself and do a Google image search for smallpox scars, and you will see what I mean. That is pretty daring, to have your heroine be a survivor of smallpox and to be dealing with that. She's still young, and she's still a person, but her father, out of pity and also practicality, makes an arrangement for her without telling her, with a sheep farmer, a duke who is also a sheep farmer. So he has a stigma, because sheep farmers have a stigma and always have, and she has a stigma. She is incredibly self-conscious. I thought this was wonderfully done. I don't know the origin story of this book. It was in one of those free dealies that I get every day now, so I just popped it into my Kindle. I don't know the origin story of whether or not this ever had a mainstream publisher. I actually don't know that about the Theo Aronson book either. But I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. So, okay, then we'll deal with the book. This is a very rare thing on this channel. I'm usually not ever going to talk to you about books that I am currently working on, right? I'm constantly making sarcastic, obnoxious comments about how I start a book and then finish it. And then I'm done. So I'm not going to come on BookTube and say, I'm working on this, guys. I don't know how people put up with me. Every once in a while, a book comes around that I do work on. I might finish it. I finished this one in 2 days. But I am not done with it by any means. It is not done with me. I am working on it in an attempt to understand it because I want to review it. And that's this. This is Wang Hui's The Rise of Modern Chinese Thought. Gigantic doorstopper that now has its first English language translation, I think with cooperation of the author. All about the thinkers, the philosophers, the pragmatic scientists, the systematizers of China in the last century. And I thought, even in translation, it was remarkably steep going, remarkably involving reading. I was constantly herring off to try and find out about things. And that's no way, that isn't fair to the book. to read it that way. So I am definitely working on this book, absolutely. I'm hoping to write a review of it just because I feel personally challenged to do it, but maybe I'll just end up enjoying it. We shall see. Okay, and then we'll finish up with our books section with Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne. This is the August pick for the Steve Tiberius Donoghue Book Club, which I ought to have known better than to even have. I should have given everybody a rest from the book club in August, because I knew early on in August that I was going to have to drop some things off the side in order to get work done in August. So I have neglected this thing so much that I'm not really going to bother with it. I'm hoping that some of you read it and liked it. I would have loved to do weekly discussions of it, but I think that window has closed. I will make a separate video about our next pick for September's Steve Tiberius Donoghue Book Club. Keep in mind you have some September BookTube events coming. I'll do a general video about all the things to do in September. But it won't be this. But I did reread it. I have the ebook and I reread it and really enjoyed it. The rereading of it was really, really a tonic to me while I was doing all of that work. Curious to know what, if you read it for the book club, I'd love to know what you think of it. But then we are now that we're done with books, we're going to finish up with Steve Under Attack. I don't know how regular a feature of this will be. It's BookTube drama. Not really. It's the friendly kind of drama that we do in this little neighborhood of BookTube. But you will all have seen, because I'm sure that everybody who watches this channel watches Michael K. Vaughan. He did a video just recently called I Read Too Slow, in which he agonizes about the fact that he has so many BookTube events to do, so many BookTube things that he wants to be involved with, so many books that he wants to read on his own for projects of his own, and so little time. He has the lady of the manor. He has a job. He has responsibilities, and all of you do too. You have kids, even though I advised you against it. You have all sorts of classes to take, all sorts of things to do. And if those things are in just the right conjunction, you might find time to regularly make videos, but even that won't last. That conjunction might end. And then suddenly you don't have time anymore. We lose booktubers that way. They start to become people who show up as infrequently as Halley's Comet. They just come into the inner solar system once in a blue moon. Or they just decamp completely. How many people have we seen do that? And when they do, they cite this very reason, that I am simply too busy. Not because I'm all that, but because real life has to take precedence over making videos. A lot of people also say what Mike says in his video, what he alludes to, which is that BookTube sometimes cuts into reading. That, ironically enough, a platform designed to celebrate the love of reading might get in the way of actually reading. I watched his video with foreboding. The organizing motif around it that he kept coming back to was that he doesn't read fast enough to get it all done. Naturally, I felt like my name was hovering over that video the whole time. It wasn't a Steve Attack video. Of course, a Michael K. Vaughan Steve Attack video would probably be pretty fun. But then it was taken up by Duncan at Back Away from the Donkey at Bat Books. He did a response to Michael K. Vaughan's video. I'll leave the links to both of them down below. They're both terrific. They're both terrific channels. In which Michael's sentiments were echoed, and in which my name was invoked because I think I was hovering over this whole thing. I think I was the only thing that Michael K. Vaughan was thinking about the whole time he was talking on camera. Because what else would he think about? What else would any of you think about, really, ever? But when it comes to the subject of reading, and reading a lot, I came up. And Duncan brought me up directly by name. Not invidiously. It wasn't that all of this is just in fun. This is not Steve being attacked, although you can bet I'm going to put that in the title of this video for clickbait. But he did point out that, I do this all the time. I don't have any of those other calls on my time. I read very fast. I have more time to read just on the clock than you do. At right about the time when you are yawning and stretching and yearning for bed, I am lining up my night's reading. It's a whole extra day that you don't have. And also, it's my job. As Duncan points out, it's my job. I am a professional book critic. All of those things add up to the point where I am sort of hovering over this discussion about not having enough time to read, especially when you marry it with the clash that I mentioned, that sometimes doing BookTube gets in the way of reading. Well, how am I not going to be hovering over that part of it too, since in addition to all the reading that I do, I make 5 videos a day? I maintain that all of that is mainly the product of the fact that I have more hours on the clock. Just that. I have more hours on the clock than you do. I maintain it's more that it's mostly that. Some of it might also come down to a tad of self-discipline. And also, maybe I don't waste time doing a couple of things that I could name that I know you do, and that there goes that time that you think is so precious. I have often said to people when they have the nerve to tell me face to face that they don't have time to write, I've often said to them, let's go over a minute by minute breakdown of how you spend a typical day. And they never do it. They never want to take me up on it because they know how vulnerable they are. Nevertheless, it is legitimate. I know that for a fact. I know that firsthand from friends of mine, from friends on BookTube. I know that when Mike says he doesn't have time, he's right. He's not, conveniently forgetting about 6 hours a day playing video games or something like that. So, I'm caught either way. I'm involved in this subject either way when it comes to either how much reading you had done, how fast you read, or how many BookTube videos you make, how much BookTube demands your time. So I naturally thought I would bring it up, not really because Steve has been attacked, but because for two reasons. I want, first of all, of course, to ask you for your own response to this. If you're a BookTuber, feel free to make a response video, but I want to know anyway, whether you make videos or not. What do you do with finding reading time? An age-old question for readers. What do you do with that? With the relentless hunt for reading time? How do you fight that struggle on your own front? That's one thing that I wanted to mention. And another thing that I wanted to mention, especially since I was hovering over Mike's video and came up in the video by Back Away from the Donkey, I want to point out something that I think you all probably already know, which is that in my own mind, I also read too slow. Very much so. There is 1,000 times, 100,000 times more reading to do than I will ever do, than I can do. So I feel your pain. I know what this feels like. I could easily make a video myself saying I read too slow. 2023 is going to, I mostly confine my reading to new releases in the American book market in 15 or 16 genres from mainstream presses. And even with that description, even with that narrow parameter, there are going to be thousands of books that come out in 2023 that I just don't get to. So I know I sympathize with this feeling. I'm not over here. I know that I like to play at being obnoxious about this, but I'm not actually. Like when Britta says she wants to read 30 books in 30 days, and I say, what about 30 books in 10 days or something like that? I'm mainly doing that just to needle her because it's fun. But I do understand this problem. I feel it myself. Very much so. So I'd love to know how you feel it. But anyway, this has gone on long enough. We're going to wrap up this, whatever this is, this Irish stew of a video. But I'll be back. Maybe not this weekend. Maybe I should give you a break and stop making 5 videos a day. I don't know. I'll think about it during some of the time during my day when I'm not making videos. Until then, I will see you next time. Thank you, BookTube.